All the food that enters our body must be broken down. And this process begins in the mouth with our saliva. Hey y'all, this lesson is going to be about following the process of chemical digestion from the mouth all the way through the small intestine. We're then going to finish up with some disorders of the digestive system. So trypsin is the inactive form. The inactive form of trypsin is called trypsinogen. The pancreas releases trypsinogen into the small intestine when it comes into contact with an enzyme called enterokinase. So when trypsinogen comes in contact with enterokinase, the trypsinogen is turned into trypsin. So again, trypsin is the active form, trypsinogen is the inactive form. So just like we had pepsinogen in the stomach that was inactive until it became in contact with the hydrochloric acid to lower the pH, and then it became pepsin. So trypsin works further to break down proteins. So in the stomach, proteins were broken down into long-chain polypeptides by pepsin. Here, the long-chain polypeptides are broken down into short-chain peptides by trypsin. Also important in protein digestion is another group of enzymes called erepsins. These are proteases. These enzymes finish the job of protein digestion by breaking the short-chain peptides into individual amino acids, which are going to be the building block of all the proteins. Now, these amino acids are able to be absorbed into the bloodstream in the villi of the small intestine. So carbohydrate digestion began in the mouth with our salivary amylase for chemical digestion, but we had no chemical digestion of carbohydrates occurring in the stomach. Once we're into the small intestine, the pancreas releases pancreatic amylase, which continues to break down the complex carbohydrates into disaccharides. The small intestine then secretes its own enzymes, such as lactase for lactose, or and break them down into different monosaccharides, such as glucose. And now those monosaccharides are able to be absorbed into the bloodstream for use as energy by our cells. And now if we remember that the lipids undergo some mechanical digestion by bile that's released from the gallbladder, the pancreas now releases pancreatic lipase. So again, lipase is the enzyme that acts on lipids. And this is secreted by the pancreas into the small intestine, and it breaks the lipids down into fatty acids and glycerol, so they're components. And then these fatty acids and glycerol are able to be absorbed into the bloodstream by use for our cells. So when we look at chemical digestion, it begins in the mouth with our salivary amylase, which begins to break down starch. In the stomach, we have hydrochloric acid, which activates pepsinogen to turn it into pepsin. And pepsin breaks down those large proteins into long-chain polypeptides. Then the pancreas, which is responsible for the lot of the chemical digestion enzymes, produces bicarbonate, which buffers the hydrochloric acid, which turns our duodenum basic, which allows trypsin to become effective, breaking down those long-chain polypeptides into short-chain peptides. The erepsins finish protein digestion by taking short-chain peptides and turning them into amino acids. The pancreatic amylase continues to break down the starch into disaccharides. The pancreatic lipase breaks fats and oils into glycerols and fatty acids. And the nucleases break down our nucleic acids. Then in the small intestine, the carbohydrates are broken down into sugars and glucose, which are then absorbable into the bloodstream through the small intestine. And enterokinases change trypsinogen into trypsin. So that was one of the kind of assisting enzymes. So here's a nice complete chart of the chemical digestion and where it occurs, where carbohydrates occur in the mouth, in the pancreas, from the enzymes from the pancreas and the small intestine. The protein digestion in the stomach, small intestine, nucleic acids in the small intestine, and fats in the small intestine. So when we're looking at controlling digestion, this control belongs to the nervous system and hormonal system. So we'll see, smell, and taste food. This will cause our mouth to water, which produces those first salivary amylases. Swallowing produces gastric juices. The hormone gastrin is produced when the walls of the stomach are distended, so when they're stretched. So these travel to the parietal cells in the stomach and signal them to release hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. The chyme, moving of the chyme from the stomach to the duodenum, inhibits contractions of the stomach, so we're not going to have stomach contractions at this point, preventing too much chyme from entering the small intestine at one point, which allows the complete digestion of the chyme by the pancreatic juices in the small intestine. And this inhibition is caused by hormone secretions from the duodenum, which travel back to the stomach to stop that sphincter from opening, preventing more chyme from being released. That CCK hormone was secreted by the duodenum in response to chyme, which targets the stomach, pancreas, and gallbladder to release bile to help to break down the fats. Gastric inhibitory peptide is stimulated by food in the duodenum, and it has the opposite effect of gastrin. So it inhibits the gastric glands in the stomach and inhibits the mixing and churning. So it slows the rate of stomach emptying when the duodenum contains food, again, so that it can be properly digested in the small intestine. Secretin is secreted by the duodenum in response to high acid levels, which result in decreased stomach movement, and it targets the pancreas to release bicarbonate so that the stomach acid can be more easily neutralized. So here we have a nice diagram of the liver, stomach, pancreas, and duodenum components with the different feedback loops in it. Okay, so we have the gallbladder, which is stimulated by CCK from food in the duodenum, which also releases secretin, which tells our pancreas to release enzymes and bicarbonates to increase that digestion and to stop churning of the stomach so that food doesn't move into the duodenum too quickly. So nerves in the stomach can also slow down or speed up muscle contractions depending on the composition and the size of the meal. So large meals require more robust contractions to make sure food is mixed properly, which is why we can often have more stomach discomfort. And if a lot of fat is detected in the small intestine, then the hormone enterogastrin is released, which slows peristalsis, allowing more time for digestion and absorption because that fat is not broken down at all until it gets to the small intestine, so it needs more time to move through, which is often why fat in our meals can leave us feeling more satisfied because we feel fuller longer. So the last thing we're going to do is take a quick look at some disorders of the digestive system. So ulcers are a common disorder of the stomach, and this occurs when the thick layer of mucus protecting the stomach erodes. So this can occur, this then permits gastric juices to eat away the lining of the stomach, exposing the stomach wall. This can be caused by bacteria, but other factors such as high levels of caffeine consumption, smoking, stress, and certain medications can also cause ulcers to occur. Hepatitis A, B, and C are all disorders of the liver caused by a viral infection. Hepatitis A is contracted by consuming contaminated water. So this is when if you travel to other parts of the world, they'll say, oh, don't drink the tap water, don't have the ice cubes, but drink bottled water. There's also vaccines for hepatitis A and B. Hepatitis B is contracted by sexual contact and can also be contracted because it's predominantly spread by blood, but it can also be contracted by things like contaminated spa tools and other hygiene issues. Hepatitis C is contracted by coming into contact with infected blood. So most hepatitis C is spread in Canada through intravenous drug use and occasionally through sexual contact. So like I said, there's vaccines that help protect against hepatitis A and B, but hepatitis C is generally incurable. However, there have been some successful treatments that are kind of long-term treatments, very expensive, that have been effective in curing hepatitis C. Cirrhosis of the liver occurs when scar tissue is replacing healthy liver tissue, and this prevents the liver from carrying out its normal functions. So this can happen as chronic damage from alcoholism, a diet high in fatty foods, or way too much sugar if you have diabetes, as well as for hepatitis C. So because your liver can regenerate, this isn't a permanent, always permanent solution, but it is a very serious condition. Gallstones are a condition where hard masses form in the gallbladder. And so the cholesterol in the bile can crystallize out of the solution and form hard, painful gallstones. And when they block the duct in the gallbladder, you end up with painful feelings, you have a hard time digesting fat, lots of stomach discomfort. And if they become too much of a problem, not just after eating kind of certain meals, then the gallbladder must be removed, which can cause some slight digestive issues, but it's nothing that you even need medication for in the long term. Okay, well, I hope that you enjoyed our lesson today on the chemical digestion in the digestive system, as well as disorders of the digestion.